Welcome to our newest psychological health talk. Today we're going to be talking about the ability to identify health possibilities. So I want to give you a little background on it as we get started. I spent a lot of time in the wellness arena, giving talks, workshops, things like that. Throughout my career. Started that in the mid 2000s, so about 20 years ago. And one of the things that was very characteristic then and is still very characteristic now of wellness programs, things that are offered particularly in business settings to help people to develop wellness strategies and improve their health outcomes is they developed very early on something called a health risk assessment. And a health risk assessment is basically a series of questionnaires. Sometimes there's data that's gathered, blood pressures, blood tests, things like that, that identify potential risks for future health problems. So high blood pressure, cholesterol numbers, whether you're overweight or whether you're a smoker, it identifies a number of things that put a person at risk for potential health issues, or I should say, if I'm going to be accurate, illness issues in the future. Now, I don't have a problem with those health risk assessments. They can be very useful and help people to identify some things that they have to pay attention to. But from a wellness perspective, this is not promotion of a healthy lifestyle. It's early identification of problems so that early interventions can take place to prevent illnesses from occurring. Now, that style actually works very well because a lot of the wellness kinds of information originally came out of health risk kinds of settings, public health, things like that, which were designed as ways to identify and treat illness before it became more expensive, more disruptive, and much of the changes in the way that our health insurance has worked since the advent of the Affordable Care Act has been primarily aimed at trying to identify earlier and treat earlier potential illnesses so that we don't have the kind of catastrophic illnesses where you undergo major surgery or you have really incredibly disruptive chemotherapy and things like that. So all of that is useful, but from my perspective is inadequate. And one of the places where that became very obvious to me, I had a colleague who is a professor at Eastern Carolina University who described it this way. He said, we go to people and we say, okay, you've got to change your lifestyle, exercise more, eat better, manage your stress, and if you do all of those things, keep your weight in control, you won't have a heart attack. And people can easily say, well, I'm not having a heart attack now. So you want me to make all these changes in my life that might be more difficult for me so that I won't have something that I already don't have. And that's a very poor motivator for getting people to actually change their lives. So here's my thought in this process. I thought instead, why don't we also look at creating a health possibilities assessment? if you can live a healthier lifestyle, you can change your diet, you can exercise, you can keep your stress under control, you can manage your sleep, you can take care of your relationships, have a healthy weight, all of those different kinds of things. What are the benefits that you get from doing that? Not just to avoid having something like a heart attack that you're already not having now, but what are the benefits that you get if you live a healthier lifestyle? And so that's where we're going to go today. We're going to be talking about that. Now, that fits within what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and that is that we started talking about the basics of behavior change. And the first basic of behavior change was to try to embrace a healthy identity. And we talked a lot about that last week. And so you can look that up on our Facebook page and view that if you're so inclined. That healthy identity is essential in guiding us in our daily lives, so that I will tend to do things that match the identity that I have. The second step was to develop a plan. Now, the way to develop a plan is essentially to look at what are my health possibilities. What kinds of things do I need to look at? And we're going to talk about 4 key health possibilities and how they impact 4 different aspects of our life in just a minute. That's going to help us to be able to identify what my best, most important plan will be to improve my health. The third step in a successful behavior change is then to have a roadmap. And the roadmap helps us to be able to put that plan into action. Now, what we're going to see as we do this is that roadmap, that's the place where getting expert opinions will actually help and make a difference. And we'll be discussing that in a future psychological health talk. Healthy identity, something that I can do for myself. Not that it's easy to do, and you can learn the ins and outs in our previous talk. Developing a plan is something we'll be talking about today, and that's also something that is very personal. And you can't just pick up a news article on health and say, oh, well, that's my plan. You have to look at what will be the essential features that you want to address. The experts really enter into the picture when we are starting to develop that roadmap. This is the place where a good expert can help you with the how to make that plan effective. The fourth element of behavior change then is to develop it into a habit that you can integrate into your life. And we're going to talk about why that's so essential also in a future psychological health talk. Because without healthy habits, the probability that we'll be able to sustain behavior change over a lifetime is greatly diminished. Those healthy habits really help us, and we're going to talk about why. But today, we're going to be focused on how to create a plan by looking at what our health possibilities are. So let's take a look, and what you can see here is a kind of a grid. On the top are 4 different qualities that indicate that a person is functioning in a healthy manner. On the side are the 4 areas that I want to address because these are areas that we can look at to see how that how those 4 qualities are actually operating within our lives. And we're going to take some time and go through them. But I want to spend just a minute talking about the 4 qualities. So the first quality that is associated with health, not just with the absence of injury, but associated with health, is having energy. Now we see, if you look at a 3 or 4 year old healthy child, one of the things that you will notice immediately is how much energy those young children have. They can just go and go and go and go. We put them down for a nap, partly because they need it, and partly because we need a break when we're dealing with that much energy. But it is that energy then that begins to be the kind of the linchpin for a healthy life for us. Now, when we divide the world, and we could have this conversation, and maybe we will in the future, but we divide the world into living species and inanimate objects. Even the term inanimate objects hints at the quality that is critical to identifying something as living, is that it has energy. So whether we're talking about a seed coming up this time of the year in the springtime and breaking through and becoming a plant, or we're talking about animals that grow and mature, human beings that grow up to become adults, that energy is a key part of being healthy. And one of the things that we see as we get older is that it's harder to maintain that energy. And as energy decreases, it feels like we are losing our health. It's one of the key indicators. The second indicator is strength. So we're not talking about being a world-class weightlifter or an athlete necessarily. What we're talking about with strength is that part of being healthy is to have enough strength to be able to do the things that are required for you to be able to manage your life. And so, again, one of the things that we see on a purely muscular basis is that strength diminishes unless we continue to exercise and work out over time. But we'll be able to see how that also affects the mind and our social interactions as well as our spirituality. That there's a certain level of strength that we need to maintain in order to feel healthy. The third area is the area of focus. So focus essentially means I've got the ability to start a task, follow it through, and complete it. And I'm not running out of energy or running out of strength or just getting distracted in the middle. So a healthy organism has the focus to do things and bring them to completion. The fourth quality is an interesting one, and it's one that sometimes gets overlooked. It's the ability to recover. So it is the case that living in this world means that we will acquire injuries and illnesses as we go through. So bacterial infections, viral infections, injuries from accidents or from daily life occur. One of the characteristics of a healthy living system is that a living system is able to recover from those things. So if we think about some of the metaphors and we think about our mind as a computer, which is a common metaphor today, one of the real differences between a computer and a brain is that if a computer breaks, it doesn't fix itself. If a brain has a problem, it can repair itself in the right conditions. And again, that's something we'll want to address as we go along. But that's characteristic of a healthy system, is that it's able to recover, and that speed and completeness with which it recovers is a quality that can be associated with health. Now, that then filters through a variety of things. So oftentimes when we talk about wellness programming, or you're looking at some kind of article, wellness is often associated primarily with body wellness. Exercise more, lose weight, eat healthy. Those are all bodily functions that are associated with health. But we do have to recognize that there's more to health than just that. And so body is interacting with our minds, and our minds need to be healthy as well, in all four qualities, to have enough energy and enough strength and enough focus and the ability to recover. Our social interactions, as a species, we are a very social creature. In fact, the reason that human beings are able to survive the way that they do is not because we're the strongest, not because we have the best eyesight, not because we're the fastest, but because we have an incredible ability to cooperate with other members of our species. And it is our ability to cooperate over long periods of time, meaning we can learn from people who lived thousands of years earlier than we live now. That ability to cooperate is a huge benefit to why our species is able to survive, and that ability to be able to survive occurs because our social relationships are healthy. And finally, there is this area of spirit, and I'm not talking necessarily about a particular religion or even religion at all, but a sense of being connected to something that's larger than ourselves. And we will be addressing that as we go through these psychological health talks. But that ability to understand our purpose, to have meaning, to be a part of something larger than ourselves is a critical piece to our being healthy. So let's take a look at these different areas. And I'm going to just kind of go through and take a look at, we're going to start with energy, and I'm going to ask you for just to pay attention to these 4 different questions that will help you to identify a little bit of whether you have adequate energy and are on the right path for health. So energy and our mind. So you might ask yourself, do I have the energy to consider things deeply? One of the things that we see with the advent of social media and scrolling and all of that is that we are inundated with lots and lots and lots and lots of information. But most of it is really, really shallow information. Health requires us sometimes to pause and consider things deeply. And so the energy that we need in our minds, more than this, but one of the things that would indicate that I have adequate energy in my mind is, am I able to consider things deeply? In my body, I wake up in the morning feeling refreshed. Now, there could be other things, of course, that would indicate that we have energy in our bodies, but this is an important one. And it highlights the importance of good sleep for our bodies to have adequate energy. Most species have this kind of dual experience where we have wake time, sleep time. Sleep time has often been seen as kind of wasted time, but it turns out that it's not. It's a place where our energy is consolidated, restored, replenished, and when we wake up feeling refreshed in the morning, we are ready to go and we have more energy. Socially, I feel energized and engaged when I meet with friends. Now, extroverts, of course, are individuals who really get a lot of energy from being in social situations. Introverts sometimes feel overwhelmed in complicated social relationships where there's lots and lots of people around, lots of noise, lots of energy, but they still feel engaged and energized, often one-to-one in a deeper conversation. So both introverts and extroverts get energy from this social interaction. And again, one of the things that shows us that we have good energy is that we can connect on a social basis the way that the human species has relied throughout its existence. Spirit, life fills me with a sense of wonder and awe. If there's never a time in my life that I don't stop and really experience myself as part of a larger system, whether it's watching a beautiful sunset, being able to see the connection with a newborn baby, there's just this sense of awe that fills us with energy and fuels our energy. So as you look through these 4 areas, mind, body, social, and spirit, you get a little feel for, get a little feel for, are these areas where in all 4 areas I have some energy that makes my life worthwhile, gives my life meaning and purpose, or are there areas that I look at and I say, okay, that's something that I really could work on to make sure that I make some changes in my life to give me more energy. And that then might become part of your plan. I need to get better sleep and make sure that I get sleep that restores me and refreshes me in the morning, or something like that. Moving on to strength, let's take a look at how this plays out in the 4 areas for strength. I enjoy activities that allow me to express creativity. So being creative is a function of having a strong mind. Part of creativity is that I can take something that I see that is pretty normal, and I can imagine other ways in which this might be employed. Creativity is this ability to see the possibilities in things that can come out of something, whether it's creating a meal. And I have these ingredients, I mix them together, I bake them, and it comes out to be a meal that is scrumptious and gives me nutrition. There are a variety of ways to be creative, not just artistic, but it could be creative ways to interact with other people, but that creativity is part of the strength of mind. I have the strength to accomplish. I have the strength to accomplish my goals. So this is referring to physical strength. One of the things that can happen as we get older is that our physical strength will diminish if we are continually challenging ourselves. So we find that a good predictor of someone being able to be healthy in 5 years is that they are engaging in some resistance training, some weightlifting, or other ways to strengthen their muscles now. It is the case that this kind of interesting process occurs. If I work out, do some resistance training, just for an example, one of the things that happens is that it breaks down my muscles in very minute ways. Fibers are torn and things like that. Part of the recovery process, our muscles build that back and a little bit more. So that in order to maintain strength, we have to challenge ourselves. We can see this in a variety of ways. So if I build back strength in my ability to think, I have to challenge myself. And when I'm building myself up from thinking, it allows my thinking processes to build back and a little stronger. So this is a process that really goes across many different aspects of our health. Strength. I can listen to others who have a different point of view. So it takes strength to be able to accommodate and listen to somebody who disagrees with me. If I can only listen to people who agree with me, I am not challenging myself to be able to learn, as I discovered for myself a number of years ago, and it should be evident, but I had to put it into words. I've never learned anything if I think I already know it. So when I listen to somebody who's different than I am, it gives me the opportunity to stretch myself, to learn. Much the same way that if I work my muscles, they get stronger. If I listen to people who disagree with me, and I might not ever agree with their perspective, but it makes me think and clarifies my own thinking by being willing to listen to someone who disagrees with me. Finally, I keep a sense of purpose in mind when I'm making my decisions. So decisions can be made kind of reactively, but if I'm really healthy, I pause, breathe, pay attention to my purpose, my meaning in life, and make my decisions in alignment with my values. If we look then at focus, I'm able to be productive during my workday. One of the things we see when somebody is starting to develop memory problems is that it's harder for them to focus. Their attention wanders more easily. If they're healthier, and one of the reasons we recommend to keep dementia at bay is to keep engaging in intellectually stimulating activities, trying new things, working on puzzles, trying to engage different senses, is that it helps us to stay focused, helps us to be able to be productive during the day. I can set goals for myself and meet my objectives. So if my body is strong, then I'm able to follow through. I'm able to do the things that I intend to do. So it's one thing to set a goal, it's another thing to meet my objectives. It reminds me of an old joke that was told by a sales trainer. He said, there are 3 frogs in a pond, and they're floating on a lily pad. All 3 frogs decide to jump into the water. How many frogs are on the lily pad? And the answer is just 1, because only 1 followed through and actually jumped off the lily pad. The others just decided, but they didn't do anything about it. Well, the strength of our bodies help us to be able to not only set a goal, but to follow through on the objective. I learn a lot from my social interactions with others. So social interactions requires focus. If I'm speaking with someone else and interacting with them, not just speaking at them like I'm doing right now, it takes effort for us to pay attention and keep up with that other person, and that requires focus. And so my social experience is more focused when I'm interacting with others. Finally, I take regular time for reflection. It isn't possible for me to stay focused without sometimes stepping back and taking time to think about my life and the direction that my life is going. That could be just taking some time alone to take a meditative walk. It could be journaling. It could be prayer. It could be some other kind of way to take time to reflect, to think about things. So the final area is recovery. I find ways, first of all, in my mind to treat adversity as a challenge. I'm flipping it around. It's not just a problem, but it's a possibility. And when I do that, I start to recover because I am looking at how to solve the problem rather than just getting caught in the uncomfortableness that something has gone wrong. I recover quickly from injuries or illnesses. A healthy person recovers more quickly, and we've discovered that when somebody is injured, their prior health often plays into, it's a major factor on how quickly they can recover. I have supportive relationships when I'm down. So that support helps me to be able to know that I can move forward. I've got help. I can also have people who can identify for me my strengths and help me to use them. And finally, I can feel connected to a larger purpose in life. So all four of these different areas have impacts throughout all of our life, our mind, our body, our social interactions, our spirit. When you look at this, if there's an area that you look at and you say, that's an area that I need to work on, that can then become the plan that you have to improve your health. We get to that from a health possibilities assessment. We don't get to that from a health risk assessment. And again, there are some advantages to having both. And I'm not saying don't do a health risk assessment, but assess your possibilities as well, so that you can look at your life and say, this is where I want to grow. This is the thing that will help me to be a healthier person in the long run. Now, next week when we get together, we're going to be talking about one of the things that can hold us back. We're going to be looking at what we call a negativity bias and why that happens for human beings, what's important about it, and how we can manage it so that it doesn't derail us from our goals, but actually helps us to become more likely to be able to get to our goals. So that's our talk for today. We're looking forward to seeing you again next week. This talk will be available on our YouTube channel, so please view it, like it, share it with your friends. Thanks.